Hey friends, welcome to my studio chat. I've just completed this painting, Autumn Radiance, and I thought you might like to see a little bit about my process. On a beautiful fall day a few years ago, I took this photograph and I thought it was worthy of becoming a painting. I enhanced the colors just a little bit in my photograph, and I love the warm colors against the greens. One of the first things that I want to do is look at the values, and it's helpful to take the photograph and change it to just black and white. When you squint at it, you can see how those dark colors connect with one another, which is important. You can see the midtones and you can see the lightest areas. My next step was to make a value study, and I did that with pencil and paper. I wanted to look for those darkest areas, I wanted to look for those lighter areas and everything in between. This is also a good place to start making some thumbnail sketches and see how the composition is going to work out. You can see that my value study is not a precise drawing at all, but it is a good way to see where my lights and darks are going to be. You can also tell that I make a lot of notes, especially about value. Now it's time to think about colors I might want to use. I really like using a limited palette, so I've picked a few colors and I probably won't use them all, but I want to see how they mix. So I create a grid and mix all of my colors and also use white to see a little bit more about how that color looks in mixture. I really like creating a vivid underpainting. Now most of this will not show, but I really think it adds a lot to the painting. Once the underpainting is totally dry, then I'm using a rose paint in order to just put in the basic structures and to get the composition down that I want. Here's the palette that I've decided on, and you can see that I am labeling my palette. Now, I've been painting for many years, but still this is very helpful. And also, not just labeling the colors that I've used and the mixture of colors that I've used, I am also labeling the values that they are. And I've used a value scale in order to determine that. Now the painting can begin. And it's the fun part, and it's also the part that is very challenging. But because I've done a whole lot of pre-planning and pre-mixing and thinking about my values, it will be a whole lot easier. Is there a best place to begin? Well, I think that's pretty debatable, but I've decided to begin with the growth underneath the trees. Some of my darkest values are underneath the trees, but I don't want to stay just in one spot. So I've put in a little bit of sky. I'm also working on the foliage. I've noticed that my sky is not all one color of blue. It's much lighter down as it gets toward the horizon and much more lavender toward the top. I've made some really good progress, but I do have a lot more work to do still on the road and in the treetops. This is where close observation is really important, and also continuing to match my values. Let's take a look at some of the details that you might not have noticed. Look how some of the underpainting in that bright, vivid, pinkish color does show through in some places. It's kind of fun, and it makes a nice surprise for the viewer's eye. Even though it is a different color, it does blend visually with the colors that are there. So it is an interesting thing to create that underpainting in a vivid color and let it peek through in a few places. One other thing, I have painted around the sides of this painting so it will be just right for a floating frame. Here's the finished painting, Autumn Radiance. It measures 24 inches tall by 18 inches wide. And this is what it looks like in a room to show its scale. To see this painting and many more, go to my website, HelenCReed.com.